Joining me now to react and talk about her own race is Kari Lake. She's a Republican candidate running for U.S. Senate in Arizona. Kari, welcome back. What do you make of that debacle?
Well, I'm mad that you made me sit through that. I can't. It's almost impossible. I'd rather listen to nails coming down a chalkboard than to listen to listen to that interview. I mean, you laugh sometimes. You scratch your head wondering what does she mean, and then if you're really honest, you have a horrified thought of what if? What if people don't get out and vote? What if she ends up in the Oval Office? And that to me is the most horrifying thought of anything I could ever imagine. So, you nailed it. Every single, you just went through it like you were going through the plays of the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, it wasn't as exciting as the Super Bowl. I think she is a master chef at making word salad. And we just saw that in the interview. And this is the funny thing. She's on MSNBC. You cannot find a more friendly territory to do an interview than MSNBC. And for her, they didn't even give her hard questions. As you said, they didn't push back all that much. If she can't handle an MSNBC, the most friendly interview she could possibly do, can you imagine if she sat down with you? I would pay money to see that, Megyn. I would pay money to see that.
I would too. I would pull a Matt Walsh the way he got Robin DiAngelo and just pay $15,000 and have her sit with me. Whatever it takes. I'll make a donation to her campaign. I'll do it. I'll make a donation. I'll buy my way in. It's just, she'll never do it. And, you're a journalist too. That's how you became a famous person in Arizona. And you understand when you sit down for a big interview, you have to prepare, right? Like you've got to prepare. And when you don't get an answer, you're supposed to press for them. Instead, we had Stephanie Ruhle out there basically saying, I don't need direct answers because these are tough issues. Listen to her talking about it after the fact with Chris Hayes in SOT 11.
What she did right there is kind of explain that it's complicated, right? We're a country of 330 million people. Our economy is complicated, right? In the same way, is the economy good or bad? It totally depends. So tariffs, if used in the right places, can work. And one could watch that and say, well, she didn't give a clear, direct answer. That's okay, because we are not talking about clear or direct issues.
Okay.
She doesn't know anything. The problem is that Kamala Harris doesn't know anything. I think you're right. I don't think she's an intelligent person. And I'm not trying to be mean. They throw a couple of things at her like, hey, make sure you throw a fact out. Throw 330 million out. You can remember that 330 million people. Throw that out in your sound bite somewhere. And then use a word like holistic. Throw that one out. Make sure you don't say what can be not burdened by what has been. Let's try to find it's like she's throwing a couple of little words in her brain and is trying to use them to sound smart, but she's got no substance. And the people are craving substance right now because they're in a world of hurt. I'm all over the state of Arizona, Megyn, and yesterday we actually held a press conference on our plans for how we can help with this housing crisis. And so listening to her talk about it, I just was realizing that we have way better plans than she could even conjure up. And you have to. People are struggling. I look at young people. We had three kind of different groups of people that are struggling right now. We had young people who are just about to get out of college. They've done everything right according to what they were supposed to do. And now they're looking at the price of housing. It's gone up in Arizona, 35%, pretty much everywhere. And then you look at the mortgage rates, which have doubled. I think from 2.77 to about 7% now. If you've got bad credit, closer to 8% if you can even get a mortgage. So that brings your monthly mortgage payment up 105%, from $1,300 to $2,700. These are Arizona figures, but I'm sure they're similar in a lot of other states. That is just pricing people out of homes. So this young generation feels that they will never be able to afford a home. They look at their parents' home, and their parents may have bought it 30 years ago, and it might have only cost $80,000 or $90,000, and now they find out it's worth $500,000. How did they ever get into a house if a starter house is $500,000 in many, many cities and communities? And then we talked to a growing family who, like many of us, myself included, I locked in on one of those awesome Trump interest rates with the mortgage rates being about 3%. We locked in our mortgage at that, and so did this young family. And now their family's growing and they want to get out of that house because they're outgrowing it, but they can't leave such a great mortgage rate and find another house that A is going to cost more and the mortgage rate is going to kill them. So they're kind of trapped in a good mortgage rate because
Well,
all
and that's
that's
the
out
thing.
there
And
are bad.
why are the adjustable mortgage rates so high? Because of the Fed, because of the inflation that she caused.
That's right.
I mean, that's the underlying bear behind all of these questions about the housing crisis and how much people are paying. Like, you caused it. They're trying. The Fed's raising the interest rates because they're trying to control the out of control inflation you caused with your drunken spending when you and Joe Biden took office. Why? Where was that question? Instead, we meandered. We had questions on whether she really worked at McDonald's and offered to, all beef patty, special sauce. I get that, like, sometimes you want to end it on a nice note, not when this person is in the presidential protection program. No, when you
I would
are
have
one of
liked
the
the
only
simple
that has
question.
access. Go ahead.
I would have liked the real simple question. Do you know what causes inflation? And just stop and see what
That'd
she
be
says.
great.
Because there's only one entity that can cause inflation, and that is the government printing money. And they printed money and printed money and printed money. The value, the worth of your own dollar went down. We talked to a retiree, senior citizens who are forced to be renting right now, and the rent is going up. And, they're one unexpected bill away from being homeless. And a lot of these senior citizens who own their homes outright now are watching, and they can't afford their property taxes anymore because their monthly spending, their monthly expenses have gone up because of that inflation, the cost
That's
of
right.
living, everything going up. And now they're saying we can't afford a property tax. If we don't pay it, we're going to be homeless. So we're in a dire situation. I am predicting we are going to see hundreds of thousands of Americans in the next few months slip into poverty. And I worry that we're going to see people who have, by no fault of their own, could even slip into homelessness, not because they've been spending crazy, not because they've been taking, extravagant vacations, because all of a sudden they cannot afford their monthly payments on anything because of the price of everything that's gone up because of the dreadful, disastrous policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that started on day one.
All she wants to do is say, "Oh no, Trump lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs even before the pandemic." That's a lie. Like, there's no accountability for what they did, which, you know what they say, past is prologue. You're going to get a whole lot more of it if they get another term, if she gets basically a Joe Biden second term, because she's not acknowledging that she's made any mistakes, that he's made any mistakes. The other piece of her plan is this: I'm going to crack down on price gouging at the grocery store, which there is zero evidence of. There is no evidence that these grocers are doing that. And she never gets pressed on that. Her surrogate got pressed on it by Sandra Smith over on Fox News the other day and had no answer. It was actually pretty remarkable. But she gets asked the price gouging question, and here's how she answered it. Watch this.
Prices are still high.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You said you want to take this on by going after those who engage in price gouging.
Yeah.
But as somebody who supports free markets, who's a capitalist, how do you go after price gouging without implementing price controls? Because once we get in this zone, people start to get worried and they say, I don't know what she stands for.
So just to be very frank, I am never going to apologize for going after companies and corporations that take advantage of the desperation of the American people. And as Attorney General, I saw this happen. In the midst of an emergency, whether it be an extreme weather event or even the pandemic, we saw it, where those few companies, not the majority, not most, but those few companies that would take advantage of the desperation of people and jack up prices. Yeah, I'm going to go after them. Yes, I'm going to go after them.
Okay, so she's trying to act tough. But the question was, as someone who supports free markets, Rule's talking about herself, who's a capitalist, how do you go after price gouging without implementing price controls? You, as the magic wanded commander-in-chief, saying, bread shall now be the following price. Milk shall revert back to $3. How do you do that without implementing price controls? And she instead, this audience knows I laugh at her because she has this John Wayne routine, Kari, where she's like, I'm a border state prosecutor and I fought those criminal drug cartels like John Wayne would. And it's a lie. And here she busted, yes, I am going to go after. No, the question is, how are you going to go after them without implementing price controls? And by the way, what is your evidence that price gouging is happening at all, as opposed to grocers are responding to your inflation?
That's right. I mean, if you talk to anybody in the food industry, grocery industry, they have one of the lowest profit margins of any business. I mean, it's a very competitive, cutthroat business, and they're got to compete with the other guys. So I think of all places, there's not price gouging in that industry, and that's where we're suffering the most, where people can't afford groceries right now, and they're ending up at the food bank at the end of the week just to get by and get through the end of the week. So she doesn't know what she's talking about. I mean, we could sit here and try to parse every word she said and read the tea leaves and try to make sense of it, but it's gobbledygook. It doesn't make sense. She doesn't know what's going on. And watching her interviews, it makes me think she's not even part of running the show right now. She is somebody they push out in front of the cameras. I don't think she's a part of any. Can you imagine if you were running a business and she was part of the team? She's not someone you're going to lean on for big ideas and, hey, how do we solve this problem? I'm deathly afraid right now if our fellow citizens are falling for this extreme makeover of Kamala Harris, and if they're watching that interview and thinking that sounds like someone who's intelligent, then we've done a really, really bad job of educating people. And shame on MSNBC, if I may. I hope that when Stephanie Ruhle was doing that interview, her inner voice, her inner thoughts were saying, OMG, oh my gosh, what do we have here? This woman doesn't know what she's talking about. I hope she was thinking that. But shame on MSNBC for pushing this whole ruse, for pushing the ruse that Biden and Harris were a great combo and that they were great for our country. They were doing good things.
Yes.
They have been
She has
destroying our
been.
country since day one, hour one, minute one, when they came in, pulled back an incredibly effective border policy, opened up our border, invited the world in. And when not enough people in their estimation came in, they started flying people in. Then they started funneling tens of millions of dollars to NGOs to pick up people at the Darien Gap and transport them in. And then they created an app to get more people in. They are trying to destabilize this country, sell us out, and destroy this country. And that's another reason our economy is suffering. You have to take into account this outrageousness of what's happening on the border. By some estimations, 21 million illegal immigrants have poured across our border in the Biden invasion. Listen, they got to live somewhere. 21 million people, they're going in housing and hotels and apartments that Americans could certainly use. And now we've got to, as Americans, compete with 21 million people for housing. It's basic supply and demand. When you have that many people who need housing, the housing prices are going to go up. And she never talks about how the wide open border has affected our economy. It's keeping wages down for hardworking, middle-class people, because when you have people coming in who are willing to work for peanuts, and they can work for next to nothing because our government, that means you and I, the taxpayer, are subsidizing their housing, giving them food stamps, and giving them
For real.
all of the resources they need. Of course, they can work for nothing because they don't have to pay for any of that. We're footing the bill for their living expenses, and they're keeping our wages depressed.
That's what the residents of Springfield, Ohio have been complaining about, in part, saying all of the housing around us has gone through the roof in terms of cost because all these Haitian migrants have come in with a government subsidy in a card, and they can rent these places, they can buy these places. We can't. And then, of course, once there's a viable market of renters and buyers there in the form of Haitian migrants who have our taxpayer money, they can drive the prices up all around them. And so the Americans there, the Springfield residents, are losing on every front. Now they can't afford their own homes, their own leases. Yeah. They can't afford to release, and not to mention what's happening in the community with all the rest of it. So yes, the subject of immigration was brought up. I want to get to that with you because obviously you are running for Senate in a border state.
I did not see the whole interview.
Come up. Oh, no, I'll play it.
I didn't have to watch the whole interview.
You did the right thing. I'm here for you.
You did the hard work for us.
Took the pain for my audience and you. Here she is asking her about immigration.
Communities around the country that have legal immigration, many have said we're at capacity. And many feel like the government has said to them, well, adapt, sit down, be quiet. This is how it is. What would a Harris administration do for those communities who've taken in many, many legal immigrants, but are at capacity?
Well, first of all, we do have a broken immigration system, and it needs to be fixed. And if we take a step back, months ago, some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress came together with others, proposed a border security bill. Donald Trump got word of the bill, realized it was going to fix a problem he wanted to run on, and told him to kill the bill. I will bring that bill back and I will sign it into law. And we need a comprehensive plan that includes what we need to do to fortify not only our border, but deal with the fact that we also need to create pathways for people to earn citizenship.
Wait, what was that?
Whoa.
There, you hear it at the end? Just slid right in there.
Yeah.
She really
Pathways to
does want
citizenship.
amnesty.
She does. The people running the Democrat Party, my opponent Ruben Gallego, actually voted to give these people amnesty and voting rights.
He
By
did.
the way, he wants everyone who's poured across to have amnesty, which leads to then citizenship. But he wants them to have amnesty and be able to vote right away. He's voted for that twice now, so that's pretty despicable. But a couple of different things here. I live on a border state here. I live in a border state in Arizona, and we're really suffering there. The whole country is now because we're all border states. There's a big difference between border security and immigration policy. Border security is keeping us safe, is making sure that nobody is just pouring into our country unvetted. And we've had, as I say 21 million. That's what I'm hearing President Trump say. He always seems to get the numbers right. People kind of go, wait a minute, that number seems inflated. And then sure enough, we find out he was absolutely right. So I think we're closer to 20 million people who've poured in illegally, unvetted. We also have seen, as the DHS has confirmed what Trump said, which is that places like Venezuela are emptying out their prisons and their insane asylums. We're seeing it in Arizona. We have these Chilean street gangs, which are they're called the dinner time bandits, breaking into homes at dinner time by the hundreds, robbing people blind. We're seeing the dangerous Venezuelan gangs who are taking over cities and towns and doing home invasions in Colorado and other places. In New York City, the subways aren't safe. The streets aren't safe. The government, our federal government, has flooded us with dangerous people that are walking amongst us. I think of Laken Riley, that nursing student in Georgia who went out for a morning run. And, she's expecting that the government is making sure people are vetted if they're coming in. She doesn't know that she's going to be running past somebody who is a violent rapist and killer. And the poor girl has lost her dreams, has lost her life because of that. And it's happening time and time again. So we've got to shut down this illegal activity at the border. I can't believe that she said that it was delivered to her broken. They broke the border. They broke the border. We don't have a border right now. They handed over control to the cartels, and 320,000 children were trafficked across our border that the border czar, Kamala Harris, has lost track of. And I'm a mother, and that keeps me awake at night. I know you are as well, Megyn. The thought of these kids first, being trafficked. I've seen video of them coming across. Many times they're coming across in large groups with people who are not family members. They look like they're drugged as they're coming across the border. For them to get thrown into only God knows what kind of a horrible world they have been thrown into and have gone missing now. God bless President Trump. He's saying it. I'm saying it. We need to repatriate these people back to their homeland in order to save our homeland. And we need to find those children. I hope they're still alive, and reunite them with their families in whatever country they came from. We cannot save our homeland unless we send these millions of people who poured in during the Biden invasion back to their homeland. Got to do it.
That's right. Get out. They don't belong here. I'm sorry, but they weren't invited. They don't belong here. They don't want to assimilate most of these folks. And it's not our responsibility to fix their lives. Under President Trump, we had 2.3 million illegals come into the country. Under Joe Biden, we had 10.4 million documented. I mean, they're undocumented, but I mean that we have confirmed 10.4 million
I think it's more
on the
than
record books. Then at least 1.3 million, quote, legal migrants that we gave the red carpet to, like the ones in Springfield. And then on top of that, there could be, that's what Trump is saying, that there's another 10 million of so-called gotaways 4 of them are in the news this week, and we'll get to it after this break, for raping and sexually assaulting children in Nantucket, along with other citizens there. It's not just Springfield. All of this is coming, or Arizona or Texas, to a state near you soon, even without another Democrat term in the White House, Kari. I mean, this is the problem's already here. Now we have to ask how to solve it. I got 30 seconds.
The millions of military-age men who poured across the border, and terrorists. So wait till we have a terrorist attack on our home soil. I predict that is coming.
Oh God, we're going to pick it up there. And after Kari Lake, we have James O'Keefe, who's doing this in-depth documentary right now, along with Tucker Carlson, on the border and what's actually happening. So we're going to take another deep dive. It's fascinating. It's chilling. Stay tuned. Every big election makes us think about the future. It is a great reminder to plan for your family's future too. A lot can happen over the next 4 years, and life insurance provides peace of mind, ensuring your loved ones are protected. Policy Genius helps you find the right life insurance policy at the best price, so you will have one less thing to worry about. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius's technology lets you compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks, helping you find the lowest price. If you ever need help, their expert licensed support team is there to answer questions, handle paperwork, and advocate for you throughout the process. Be ready for the future with Policy Genius. Head on over to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. Policygenius.com.
This is an ad from BetterHelp. Unfortunately, we don't get an owner's manual for ourselves. There are no simple instructions for what to do when we feel down, or when we have relationship problems or family conflicts. That's when therapy can help. And BetterHelp is a convenient way to get started. It's 100% online, flexible, and surprisingly affordable. Connect with a licensed therapist by phone, video, or online chat at a time that works for you. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more. That's BetterHelp.com.
In the Marines, we always said, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. Well, Arizonans know, on the border, there is no plan until Washington politicians stop coming to Arizona for your BS political stunts. We just want solutions. I'm Ruben Gallego, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to the Megyn Kelly Show. Kari Lake is Ruben Gallego's opponent for that U.S. Senate seat being vacated by Kyrsten Sinema, and is, according to the Real Clear Politics, average down in that race some 4 points, I think it is. The Real Clear Politics average has him up 4.6. 538 has him up 6.6. But I wonder, Kari, whether he has that same message for Kamala Harris, who's one of those Washington politicians going there right now for her first border trip in 3.5 years to Douglas, Arizona.
Hope she can find the border. She's been the border czar and has not been able to find it as of yet. And when she gets down there, she's going to see one really amazing thing, which is a big, beautiful wall in some parts that President Trump put up. And then she's going to see huge gaps that we wanted to build the wall. But she and Joe Biden, along with their cheerleader, Ruben Gallego, who you just saw there, took all of the materials that we, the people, paid for, $325 million of border wall material that we were going to finish the wall with in huge parts of Arizona. And they sold it for pennies on the dollar. It was really theft on the people that have been on the tax-paying citizens. And so she'll see the big, beautiful wall. She'll know how amazing that is and how it works to keep people out. The cheapest way to secure our border is with the wall. President Trump understood that, and he was working to finish that wall. And when I win the U.S. Senate and President Trump gets back in the White House, we are going to complete the wall from the Gulf Coast to the Pacific Coast. And we are going to make sure that we have a border wall. We're going to have a door, an opening, a big door for legal immigration, but we are going to have no door for illegal immigration. It's going to be shut down, no more illegal immigration, and we will then take a look at our legal immigration and how we're allowing people in. I think it's 1 to 2 million a year we accept in legal immigration, and that needs to be based on, in my belief, on what our economy needs. it should change depending on what our job situation is. If we have plenty jobs and we can't fill them all, then we need to maybe look at having more people come in through legal immigration. But if jobs are scarce and Americans are out of work, then we need to have fewer people coming in through legal immigration. But we can't really delve into immigration because I don't think the American people have an appetite for it as long as this border is wide open and we're being flooded with people coming in illegally, many of them who are dangerous. You mentioned the
That's
polling. I am not looking. The public polling in this election has been so bogus and so misguided that I feel very confident where we stand. We are in our internal polling have been up slightly the whole time. So I don't look at that public polling because I just don't believe it after what I'm seeing in our own polling. And I'm also seeing something else that's really interesting. If he were really up by what some of these ridiculous polls say, he would not have already poured, he and his friends, $75 million into ads running for this race. They wouldn't be watching Chuck Schumer pour $5 million a week into this race. If he were really up by what some of these ridiculous polls have said, they would take that money and move it into another state. But Chuck Schumer is pouring a fortune into Arizona. The Soros family is pouring a fortune into Arizona. They're lying about my opponent. They make him look like a real level-headed guy. He is the most hateful human being, a Twitter troll who his favorite word is the F word on Twitter. He literally told a Marine to F off and take the shot, the COVID shot, when the Marine was kind of saying, hey, I'm not so sure about this. He said, F the cops. He said, F the NRA, F your prayer. This is the kind of stuff that he says on Twitter. And then in the so-called Summer of Love, Megyn, when he was marching in Defund the Police rallies next to a sign that said all cops are, and then the word bastards, I hate to even say that. He was marching next to a sign like that, calling to defund the police. He co-sponsored legislation, the George Floyd legislation, wanted to get rid of the filibuster to ram that legislation through, legislation which would have defunded the police nationwide, changed up the style of policing to more of the social worker style policing, and taken away qualified immunity. And for people who don't understand what that is, it's really that insurance that an officer has that when they're out trying to protect us and keep us safe, and they have to be able to take their weapon and use it in an emergency situation, and they don't always get it right. Sometimes they make a human mistake. They're making split-second decisions, and we don't want them to have to lose everything, everything they've got, and have their family lose everything. Qualified immunity protects them from that. He wants to get rid of that, which would mean no officer would ever feel comfortable to discharge their weapon and save their lives
more crime.
in a dangerous situation.
It means
more crime. It means, yes,
and
absolutely.
in a state that's already riddled with immigrants from God knows where, many of whom are themselves already criminals.
That's right.
That bit about wanting to get rid of the filibuster is very alarming. And especially because Kamala Harris gave an interview just over the weekend in which she reiterated her own favor for getting rid of the filibuster. She claims to put Roe versus Wade back into action, to somehow have a national plan that mirrors. Okay, so she doesn't have that power. First of all, that she's going to find out the hard way that that's not constitutional. But she wants to, and she wants to get rid of minority rights in the Senate in order to do it. And he's totally on board. Here he is. And by the way, if you get rid of the filibuster for Roe versus Wade or abortion, it's gone for everything. It's gone. That's it. Here's Ruben
Then
Gallego
Washington, D.C.
on this same, in January of 2023 on the filibuster. Listen to SOT 15.
Look, my position is that filibuster has to get reformed. It's not a tool of compromise. It's a tool of obstruction.
Okay, Kari, I've got to tell you, I know you say you don't believe the polls, but how is this guy anywhere close to you? Arizona has been a red state. I know right now it's all blue in its leadership. There was somewhat of a revolt during the Trump years, but how could Arizonans be thinking about voting for this man?
They aren't. I mean, I'm on the ground. I talk to more Arizonans every day, every week than anybody in the country, and they aren't. And you have to look. Yes, we do have Democrats leading the state, and you have to look back at the last election. And I know we probably don't want to delve into that, but I believe that our government was taken from the people in that, and we could go on to that in another show, but that's why we're working so hard to make sure we have elections that are run honestly. And I think people are waking up to the fact that we've got issues like illegals voting, all kinds of lines on voter rolls that shouldn't be there, and we have all kinds of issues. But Ruben Gallego, I guess he graduated from Harvard. Doesn't seem like the brightest bulb. But yeah, he wants to get rid of the filibuster. And because this shows that they don't want to have any compromise and talk. First of all, you're not going to get rid of the filibuster. And you're right. They don't have the ability to, as they want it, as you said, bring back Roe and all of that. They just constitutionally don't have the ability to do that. I agree that that decision should be sent back to the states. And that's where we are right now, where states are deciding that. But he wants to get rid of the filibuster for everything. Get rid of the filibuster to pass the George Floyd legislation, to defund the police. Get rid of the filibuster to make Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico a state. He's already voted once to make Washington, D.C. a state. How does that help Arizona? And why would he make that vote? He is a congressman. He's a congressman in the District of Arizona that has the fastest growing homeless population in the country. Fastest growing homeless population. It's not Portland. It's not San Francisco. It's not Skid Row. It's not D.C. It's right there in the heart of Ruben Gallego's district. Now, the benefit he has, Megyn, is that he has no name ID. People don't know who he is. And you would think, wait a minute, Kari, that's a terrible thing.
I keep seeing him pop up on my Twitter feed. He's definitely got money to advertise on X because he's there all the time. I'm basically like, stop harassing me, but you can't avoid it.
So he had no name ID. People didn't realize how bad his votes were. Literally every bad thing you could imagine, every bad idea, from boys participating in sports with our girls. He's voted for that. Kids getting sex changes, underage kids getting sex changes behind their mom and dad's back. Federal money going to sanctuary cities. I mean, literally everything he votes for is a vote in the wrong direction. And so people don't know who he is. And now because they don't know who he is, he comes out. He bullies Kyrsten Sinema, who is a pretty moderate Democrat turned independent, bullies her out of office and runs because she wasn't progressive enough, according to him, and runs for office and now is doing this extreme makeover where he's trying to act like a moderate. He doesn't even call himself a Democrat anymore, even though he was in leadership in the Progressive Caucus and has voted with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris 100% of the time. He's to the left of AOC and the Squad. He's to the left of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. He actually makes Bernie Sanders look kind of moderate. That's how radical he is.
100% in line with Joe Biden's policies. 100%.
100%. Now, I can't think of anything I've liked that Joe Biden has done. But even people like AOC only voted with Joe Biden. I think it was like 95 or 96% of the time. He is lockstep. He's their favorite congressman. He's their little rubber stamp. And so the scary thing is, though, because he's got so much money and they're running these ads, some people are looking at those ads and they're going, oh, he's kind of a cross between Mr. Rogers and G.I. Joe. Maybe we should vote for him.
He called Trump's border wall stupid, dumb, absurd, and pointless. That's what he said. He accused Trump of scapegoating immigrants, and he wanted amnesty for 2.3 million illegals. I'm having difficulty understanding how he's not at 2%, but I think, you tell me what you think, I think it's about abortion because his lead, if you believe, the New York Times Siena poll, which I know you don't, but if you do, his lead over you is with women. He's plus 11 over you with women. You're plus 2 over him with men and with young people. He's plus 30 among the 18 to 29, plus 22 among the 30 to 44. My tea leaf reading says, okay, that's probably abortion because it looks like Arizona has 58% of voters saying they plan to back this Prop 139 at the ballot box, which would make the current abortion regime more radical than it is. Right now it's at 15 weeks in Arizona, and they want to restore it to the Roe regime, which would make it around 24 weeks, but also at any point based on the physical, quote, or mental health of the woman, which is an exception that completely guts all restrictions. It seems like, for better or for worse, Kari, Arizonans are pretty strongly pro-choice. He is too. Do you think that's hurting you?
Well, I will say the polls typically, as you get closer to election day, start to get closer. But when you look at the real clear politics, there were a couple of really crazy polls in there that were just absolutely ludicrous. So that's why I think when you look at the average, you're saying, why is he up this much? It's much closer than that. I'm showing in my internals that I'm up by a smidge, so I'm happy with that. But he is talking about that topic, and that's all he's talking about. And then he walks along the border and acts like he cares about the border. Now he's even saying things like, "Oh, maybe we do need a wall in some places," when he fought tooth
Oh,
and
wow.
nail against President Trump. So that's all they have. That's all they have to talk about. And
Okay, but
and
what
he
about
knows it,
abortion? What
and
about,
I
because
know it.
that's been one of your unsteady points where you came out, you were pretty, very hard, like strong pro-life, and then there seemed to be some backlash, and then you backed off of it to the point where some conservatives were saying, "What? Where does she stand?" Because you came out and said, "Okay, you said I choose life, but I'm not every woman. I want to make sure that every woman who finds herself pregnant has more choices, so she can make that choice that I made." So I don't exactly know where you stand on it. Like, do you support this Proposition 139 that would restore the Roe
Let me
regime?
tell you where I stand on it. And Ruben knows this as well. We're running for a federal office. We're running for the United States Senate. And so we don't get to decide what the law is. It's been handed back to the states. And the people of Arizona in this election are going to get to decide. We're going to get to choose what our law is. Is it going to be this current 15-week abortion law that was bipartisan, that Democrats and Republicans supported in the legislature, which basically allows for abortion up until about 4 months of pregnancy? Or will it be the one that you just described? The people of Arizona get to decide, and we're all going to get one vote in that. And Ruben doesn't respect that. He wants to take that choice away from us in Arizona. He wants to take the choice of deciding what this law is away and act like a little emperor and get rid of the filibuster. And he thinks he's going to decide it at the federal level. It's going to be decided at the state level. And I trust the people of Arizona. Whatever they decide will be the law. And what I would like to do as a U.S. Senator from my position in the Senate is pass more pro-family legislation. I had a real epiphany about a year and a half ago, and I had an opportunity to go to Hungary. And I was reading up on Hungary, and I was reading on the way over, and I noticed that they had cut the number of abortions in half in a very short period of time. And I got a chance to meet with the prime minister, and I said, "How did you do that? And you didn't change any laws?" He said, "No, we didn't change any laws. We realized that we were having we needed to up our population. The birth rate had
Yep.
gotten very, very low. So they started passing pro-family legislation. If you get married, you get a tax bonus. Maybe your taxes come down 1%. You have a baby, they come down a little bit more. You have another one. Any woman in Hungary who has 4 babies never pays taxes again." And what they did was they encouraged families, and they encouraged the beauty of that. Listen, times are really, really tough right now. More and more women are going and having an abortion because they can't afford a baby. And if you look at the statistics, 60% of women say if they would have known they had emotional or financial support, they would have tried to keep their baby. And I just want to make sure that women know they do have that support. And as Republicans, we haven't done a good job at talking to women, even though I believe
And yet you
Republicans
get the
do
Planned
care
Parenthood
deeply about
messaging
family.
everywhere, including
Yeah.
outside the DNC, about how you can abort your baby right here. Just take a pill and you can abort your baby. May I ask you, though, because you are an Arizona citizen, are you going to support this Proposition 139? Is that something you could vote for?
I support the law that's on the books that was bipartisan. It was passed by both Democrats and Republicans, and it allows
Yeah,
for
at the
exceptions.
15
I
weeks.
believe in exceptions. I believe you have to have exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of a mother. And so that's the one I'm going to support.
Okay, that makes sense. Can we just
But
spend a
again,
minute
you know,
before you
the
go
people are,
on?
I don't know, how that vote's going to go, and the people will decide. And it makes me sick that Ruben wants to take the choice away
Yeah.
from the people of Arizona.
That's exactly right. It's not a federal issue. That's the
Yeah.
problem. That was the problem with Roe. 9 judges in black robes seized control of the issue for 50 years. Anyway,
Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself said this should be decided at the state level.
that's right. I've got to ask you about his weird marriage controversy. What went on with he claimed that he was engaged on February 15th of 2020. In fact, we later found out he had already been married to this person for at least 2 months. He announced the marriage in June of 2021, he had gotten married 2 years earlier, 2+ years earlier. Why is he lying about when he got engaged to and married his current wife?
If this guy's breathing, he's lying. I mean, to be honest, and I hate to always bring up personal stuff, but I think in a
Well, I
situation when
brought it
we're
up.
electing, no, you did, thank you. Well, when we're talking about electing somebody to office and they're going to be there for 6 years, we need to know the character of the person. I mean, this is a guy who walked out on his 9-month pregnant wife, his first wife, when she was about to give birth to their firstborn. He served her divorce papers days before Christmas, walked out and ran off with a DC lobbyist. And his first wife had to deliver that baby all alone and take care of that newborn all alone. And this is the lobbyist that he ended up marrying. I don't know
This is
why
the
he did that.
second
He got
wife.
married to
Okay.
her at the end of 2019, and then several months later, they were married in 2019. Then in 2020, on social media, he says, I popped the question and she said yes. And I'm like, wait a minute, you've already been married several months. You popped the question, made it look like they had this big special engagement. And then months later said, oh, we got married. You know, if you're going to lie about things like that, strange, weird things like that, you're going to lie about everything. And you can look back at his life and realize before he got into politics, he was a director of a bank that was set up for illegal immigrants to do banking. And they got charged with fraud for bilking Latino immigrants out of their life savings. From there, he went on to an ambulance company that ended up under
boy.
federal investigation for Medicare fraud. This is a guy, if you're willing to defraud Medicare and defraud, immigrants, then you really, and you're willing to walk out on your wife days before she gives birth to your firstborn. This is a guy of questionable character. And I don't think we need any more crooked politicians in the Senate or in DC. We actually need to get rid of some crooked politicians and bring some honest folks in there. So I'm
All
looking
right, I got a
forward
question
to
for you.
representing the people.
I got a
Okay.
question for you. Because we have a lot of women who watch this show. We have a lot of men too, but a lot of women who consider themselves independent. And I've sensed a change in you from when you first burst onto the political scene to now. Like I think you still have swagger and it's justified. You're an incredible communicator. You're the best at battling with these nasty press people who want to throw false, quote, facts in your face. And you've just proven yourself a very capable campaigner. But maybe some of these women who are getting ready to, entertain him as their candidate think, oh, she's too brash, or she was too pro the Trump election denialism stuff. And if those women are listening to this interview thinking, oh, well, I don't know, maybe she's changed, because that's just my perception of you, that like some time in the political arena has maybe settled you some. Forgive me, that's my own opinion. What say you?
Well, I think I don't think I've really changed as a person. I mean, you constantly kind of growing, and you're hoping to, if you have flaws, to work on those and always be a better person. But I believe if you see a change in my tone, it's just that I realize we are at the end of the line for our country, and there's just a more serious feeling in my soul about what's happening. I have 2 kids, and I am deathly worried about their future right now. That's why I continue to stay in this fight. And I'm realizing too that so much of the back and forth, like in each other's throats, and the media saying we're 50-50 and we're at each other's throats, it's not moving us forward as Americans. And we have a lot of problems right now, and we're going to have to come together. I'm also realizing this isn't a Democrat versus Republican situation. I believe this is Americanism versus communism. And when you realize how serious what our country would look like if it was a communist country, that sends a chill down your spine. And so there's a much more serious feeling about what's going on right now. I feel much more nervous about the future if we don't come together and get this right. And I would talk to women out there, and I'm a woman. I by the way, Republicans know what women are, and I grew up in a
Yeah.
family of women. I grew up in a family with 8 girls, eight of us, and 1 boy. My poor brother, he turned out great, by the way. And so I understand women, and I also understand that for a lot of women, these times are really tough. I mean, I'm in my 50s, and I was talking to a couple of women who are single and they're in their 50s. I don't know if they were divorced or what the situation was, but they said they were single and that they're actually really worried about their job, if their job's going to be around. Apparently, they're in the industry they work in, they're having some layoffs. And I know for a lot of women, that can be a really shaky time. We're in a scary time. And if you're kind of going at this alone and worried about the economy and your job going away, and I think we need to do a better job at talking to women about how we can make sure we are doing what we can to protect this economy and make sure that they're not going to have to go it alone without somebody
Hopes,
to lean on.
aspirations, and dreams. That's the way, Kari. Hopes,
That's the way.
aspirations, dreams.
In a holistic way.
Oh my God,
So
I can't.
listen, I'll tell you what women want, and what I believe women want, and what I think all people want. They want a good, strong, healthy economy. They want to make sure that our streets are safe. They want to make sure our borders safe. Our kids are getting a solid education. We have a ton of huge problems on our hands, right? The solutions are actually really easy, but the politicians in DC don't like to solve the problems. They want to keep the problem so they can pour hundreds of millions and oftentimes billions of dollars into the problem. Ruben Gallego wants that border wall open. He wants to throw tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions toward NGOs, pour a little bit of money toward this special group over here, this group, keep the problem there so they can continue to pour our tax dollars into the problems.
Well, he's already in office as a congressman, and as I said, has a record, has voted
done
entirely
nothing
with Joe Biden. If you want somebody from the outside, somebody who might actually go to Washington and shake it up, you're looking at it right there in green. Kari, great to see you. Thank you. And
Thank you, Megyn.
we'll continue watching the race.
Okay. God bless you. Bye-bye.